Yeah, when you look at 2023, it was a really strong year. We had 3 upgrades over the course of the year. And when you look at our Q4 performance, we had 10% sales growth, 13% core operating income growth, which led to the very strong performance you saw overall. 10% sales growth for the year, 18% core operating income growth. We got our margin up above 36% on our way to 40%. And importantly as well, we also updated our midterm guidance, giving guidance now from 23 to 28 at a 5% sales CAGR. Now, one of the things that did happen in the quarter is we had a devaluation in Argentina, which led to the EPS being a little bit lower than what the analysts expected. But that's not really an operational item. And really, when you look at the underlying operations of our business, looking really, really good moving into next year.
And I want to discuss the guidance for 2024 because it is actually slightly lower from what you had guided for 2023. Just guide us through the reasons behind the guidance for 2024.
Look, we had a really strong 23, and that gives us momentum into 24. A lot of great growth drivers performing really well. So right now we have about 10 different products that had positive phase 3 readouts last year. That gives us a lot of momentum. The difference in 2024 is we do face some products losing exclusivity. So we have 3 products, Tasigna, Promacta, and a product called Sandostatin, which we expect to lose exclusivity in the United States. So that creates a little bit of headwinds for us. But overall, when you look at the underlying growth of our growth drivers, they're growing at double digit, and that should continue.
Now, I want to check also what are your thoughts on a comment that I got from an analyst. Heading to these results, this analyst said that there's a limited clinical catalyst calendar for 2024. What is your response, and what's the strategy to change that?
Look, we have a different view. I mean, one of the things that happened, I think, last year is we saw all of these positive readouts. But the analysts don't know that data yet. And so what we're going to have over the course of this year is some really important clinical trial full data sets being presented, including for a drug like Scemblix, which we announced at JP Morgan earlier this year. We also have a drug called Pluvicto, which will have updated phase 3 data. So what the analysts are going to get is the full phase 3 package, which will then allow them to understand fully, I think, what the opportunity is. And then when you move to 25 and 26, we have a lot more readouts coming. So I think it's a good calendar for the coming years.
I also would like to get an update when it comes to Kisqali, because in the last set of results, you suggested that you were planning a filing in the United States before the end of the year. Where are we when it comes to that?
So Kisqali is filed now in the U.S., Europe, as well as in China. So we really are on track now. And that's an important filing because that filing allows us to more than triple the number of patients who could benefit from Kisqali in what's called the adjuvant setting or the intermediate high-risk adjuvant setting. So we're really excited about that data. I mean, that's going to allow Kisqali, which is already growing at a really great rate in the metastatic setting, to move into earlier lines of therapy for women with breast cancer.
And speaking of the United States, there's ongoing conversations about changes to the price of drugs due to Medicare. I understand that the U.S. government has to come up with a proposal by the 1st of February. Could you just give us an update on where these conversations are and what is the outlook here?
So we don't know yet what is the first round of these negotiations, really price setting that the government has undertaken. We'll get that information over the course of February, and then we'll have a back and forth, and we'll understand where we stand in September. For us, it's not a real major driver, given that we expect Entresto, the medicine that we have on this list, anyway, to have loss of exclusivity during this period. But I think it's really important from a policy-making standpoint to ensure we get this policy fixed. As you've probably heard from many pharmaceutical CEOs, this is a very problematic policy, and we need to get adjustments made in terms of the 9 years versus 13 years of protection for price in the United States. Otherwise, I do think you're going to have fewer drugs for seniors in the future.
And that actually leads me to my next question, because with Medicare, with IRA, and we talked about that in Davos, why is the priority still investing in the United States? This is still the main market for you. You said in the results today that you still want to be big in the U.S. Why? What is the reason behind that?
I mean, the U.S. continues to be the most dynamic market in terms of adopting new innovations. When you look at the speed at which new medicines are ultimately introduced in the U.S. at attractive overall prices, it's extremely attractive to move into the U.S. still, despite all of the challenges. Now, for us as a company, we'd like to get to around 50% of our sales from the U.S., which would lead to a real balance. I mean, we are the leading #1 player in Europe, number one player in many of the international markets. We just want to get to the top 5 in the U.S. to give us that, I think, global balance that would allow us to sustainably grow in the future.
So definitely no cut in exposure when it comes to the U.S.
Not at this time, no.
Now, we talked about potential deals for 2024, and in Avos you suggested that you're looking at smaller deals below $5 billion. I was just wondering what kind of bolt-ons would actually help you building your portfolio, and whether the weight loss drug market is something that you can be looking at via these smaller deals.
When we think about our therapeutic area focus for M&A, we really want to stay tight in terms of where we're looking at. And so we want to focus on these bolt-on deals. I mentioned to you under $5 billion deals. If you look at last year, we did 15 deals. Total value of all of those deals was around $6 billion. That's where we see the most value creation. When we think about obesity drugs, we're really thinking about what will come next. What are the next generation targets or medicines that could have a big impact? So this will be many years away. What we realize now is that in this first wave of medicines, it's very well served. A lot of companies currently entering. And what we don't want to do is just be a Me Too product. We really want to bring a true innovation forward.
So you think the market is too populated when it comes to weight loss drugs?
I think it's getting very crowded at the moment, for sure.
I also would like to get your thoughts on the comparison that often Novartis gets with Roche. Naturally, they have already stepped into the weight loss drug market. Is there any leeway for you to seek some sort of deal with Roche itself that will allow you to also step in that market? Because there's speculation right now of a potential deal between Roche and Novartis.
Yeah, nothing to say about that. That speculation, as you know, has been going on for decades, and I'm sure it will always continue. I think more important, what we've seen in 2023 in terms of our performance is that when we focus on 4 core therapeutic areas, cardiovascular, neuroscience, oncology, and immunology, we see great performance. So while there's a lot of excitement about obesity, and we certainly want to figure out how that could play a role in our cardiovascular drug portfolio, our focus is to drive performance in those 4 therapeutic areas we've highlighted, and we think that's the biggest opportunity for the company.
Now we're approaching the end of our conversation. I would like to get your thoughts on where the revenue is going to come from for the next few years. If you had to highlight one part of the business, what's that going to be?
I think it's our new launches. I mean, when you look at the launch portfolio that we have coming forward, we have opportunities to build multi-billion-dollar medicines in cancer with Pluvicto and Kisqali, in neuroscience with Kesimpta, which is an incredible drug for multiple sclerosis, in cardiovascular disease with Leqvio and a drug we have upcoming called Pelacarsen, in immunology with a range of different assets that we recently had data readouts, things like remibrutinib, another drug called ianalumab. So in each one of our therapeutic areas, we have these new multi-billion-dollar launches, not even to mention our entry into renal diseases, where we have iptacopan and a drug we recently acquired, atrasentan. I think as analysts start to model out those launches, they'll understand why we have so much conviction. We can grow 5% 23 to 28, and then keep growing mid-single digit into the 2030s.
And before I let you go, I just want to get your thoughts also on dividend, because I noticed that there is an increase of 3.1%. Obviously, investors are likely to be happy about this. But walk us through the reasons, and are we likely to see similar levels at the end of 2024?
So we're very consistent on our dividend. We've increased our dividend every year since Novartis was created, and we do that independent of some of the portfolio changes we've made. We spun out Alcon, we spun out Sandoz, and we maintain the dividend and keep growing it in Swiss francs. It's actually even a higher percentage when you look at US dollars because of the exchange rate. And we plan to continue to have a strong and growing dividend. I would want to say as well, if you look at our actions, they've always been shareholder friendly. We have an ongoing $15 billion share buyback. Our spin out of Sandoz was tax neutral. You have a growing dividend. So from all of those angles as well, we make a great investment for investors.
The one analyst did say that you seem to actually pay quite a lot of attention to what shareholders are saying. So just when it comes to that, what is the next thing you would like to deliver for shareholders?
Now that we've completed the transformation, it's all about the next, innovations we can bring forward. I mentioned the 10 positive phase 3s. I think the biggest thing on people's mind for our company is how will we grow now beyond the next 5 years, years 5 through 10. And this year and next year will be all about showing the data and the innovation that we can generate to enable us to grow into the 2030s. And that's a great problem to have. When there's confidence in the next 5 years and you're focused into 5 years beyond that, that's the place we want to be.